There you go. We're live.
We're live. What a great looking intro.
Thank you. I was thinking I might need to have Monica look at that because I did that one on my own, and so it doesn't have Monica's, unique perspective and eye on it.
But it's got your colors, it's got your images, it's got your vibe. It's about
Yep.
the compass and guiding through life and dealing with the twists and turns and all the shit that comes with it.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So for those who are used to hearing Tanya lead the way, ask the questions, drive things. We're gonna do things a little bit different. Hey, Rachel. I'm doing a takeover because this episode is not about me. This episode is about Tanya. And I have convinced her to allow me to come on so that we can hear tales from her life and hear her share some things. Because in my 6-ish months of knowing Tanya, not a week passes where I don't go, holy shit, how did I not know that? Because Tanya is full of adventure, has lived a full life, has done so much stuff. And I think it's worth sharing. And I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you for letting me.
And I can't believe I just let you take right over. I'm like, holy cow, he just took right over. So you have to kind of explain why I let you just take over, because nobody is like Phil. Hi, Phil. Hi, Rachel. I know they're going, oh my God, how did she let him just take over? She never lets that happen. So you have to give some context to this, Rob, because I know Phil's just right now peeing his pants.
Well, look, as I said, I think I shared it. Is every time once a week there's a story. I'm lucky enough to be Tanya's coach, and I'm lucky enough to be in a position of mentorship and trust. And you share so much and trust me so much, and you come across great on video. You're a natural storyteller. You're a natural speaker, and instead of you trying to fight your way to express some things through written form, we were brainstorming. This is how we ended up here with the idea that Tanya's great on video. Tanya's great when you get her telling stories. So we need someone who's asking her. And now, look, I intentionally did it from the outside of the call because well, those who are laughing in the chat, because even with the description of the event, I told Tanya, I'm like, here, this is the naming. We're going to make it about you. We're going to say we're talking about you. And then Tanya opened the description to the event as Rob is an amazing human. I'm like, no, it's not about me. It's about you.
Okay, but everybody knows I don't follow rules, right? So no one's surprised on that. Hey, Lenore.
All right, I'm gonna get right into it. So
Okay,
some
go
people
for it.
know why the compass is the logo and part of your branding, but I think a bunch of people maybe do not. And for those who know this already, it's okay because we're gonna start here. We'll go deeper. Why is the compass so important to you, and why is that such an important part of your branding?
Oh gosh, I have two reasons for that. One uh, uh, is that, and most of my friends know that I lived on a sailboat. From the age of 17 for 8 years, I lived on a sailboat, and steer. In the beginning, we didn't have a radar, right? We used a sextant and a compass, right, to navigate. So it's very near and dear to my heart. The navigational piece in navigating a business is important, right? So it just resonates. And it also very much reminds me of my grandfather, who had a converted PT boat, and we grew up, you know, in San Francisco Bay, on his boat on the weekends. And so if I had to like think of my grandfather, it would be a compass for sure. So there's two. And I don't know if you knew that or not, but
I
that's
I
that's
didn't
that's
know that
it.
second reason. This is cool. I had no idea about that second reason. And I knew you lived on a boat, but I don't think I realized it was 8 years, or I blocked
Mhm,
that piece. So 8 years is a long period of
mhm.
time.
Yep.
It's almost a decade. What what is one time, share an adventure from that time, and maybe we'll go like a time where you were scared or you had to overcome some obstacles, because I think there's some parallels. You're right. The compass of guiding in rough waters,
Mhm.
like in real life, but then also in your business, it applies as a metaphor. So tell us a rough water story during that
Well,
8 year
first of all, okay, easy. If the seas were over 3 feet, I was seasick. It doesn't. All 8 years, if I had anything over 3 foot of seas out there, I was either sleeping my way through it or my head over the side of the railing because it was my shift. So that blows me away that I put up with that for so long. An obstacle. So we bought and sold sailboats. We'd buy a boat, our first one was tiny, 24 feet. When I was cooking in the galley, I had to bend my knees because my head would hit the top. And we fixed it up, sold it, bought a bigger one, fixed it up, sold it, bought a bigger one. So I was already selling at that age boats. And so I learned to varnish. I learned to, sew things for boats. So I had a sewing machine tucked away somewhere in my boat. And it was good. It was a lot of hard work in the tropics, bent over varnishing other people's boats because that's what I did to earn money. And then he's now my ex. He fixed things, like he'd fix the engine or fix the refrigerator system or whatever on other people's boats. And that's how we kind of earned money. And that just wasn't really turning me on. So I obviously would pick up Cruising World magazine. I'm like, why aren't I writing for Cruising World magazine? I have so many adventures. And so I wrote a couple articles, sent it off, and they sent it back to me, and I got rejected. I'm like, how did I get rejected? I mean, I was like on my way to college. I knew how to write, right? And like, no, you're not writing for it's the same thing, Rob. You're gonna have an aha moment. It's like LinkedIn. You're like, you don't write for LinkedIn. It's like you're not writing for magazines. Now think about this. This is when I was 17 and I'm now 60. There's no online courses back then. So I had to find a correspondence course like in St. John's in the Virgin Islands and then sign up. All of this through the mail system. Take it, and every time we'd anchor or get to a marina, I'd mail in my homework and have to wait for them to send it back. And I did this and took the correspondence course for writing for magazines. Then I started submitting articles and then they started paying me. And I'd get paid somewhere between $300 and $500 an article.
You're blowing my mind. All right. So what I'm hearing is decades ago, you got your first taste of real buying and selling at a scale where it's substantial because boats aren't cheap. And you had the idea to write and got rejected and decided that you're going to learn more and figured out a way to learn more and pre-internet, like mailing in stuff. Are you, are people listening? Are you hearing the dedication to growth and learning? That's insane. I have to suspect that you got some learning or some lesson from buying and selling boats that you carried forward with you later in your career. Can you share something about a lesson learned or an experience buying or selling a boat that you carried with you later?
Gosh, truthfully, it's like curb appeal, making things look nice. Like when you're selling a house, you've got to get, you put things away, less is more. So those kind of simple things, truthfully, maybe this is one thing I'm not proud of, but I certainly want to be transparent. My ex took over on most of that stuff. He's 10 years older than me. So I don't really remember the actual selling process. I think I just kind of let myself be led through that.
Even still, I don't think you need to shortchange yourself because the curb appeal thing would be similar. It's a dwelling. It's a physical place that you're visiting. As you're walking up the dock towards it, there's an impression being made. The curb appeal would totally, it's dock appeal. I don't think
dock
I've ever
appeal. There you go. Hey, Jerry.
I've never thought of that as a phrase before.
But
dock appeal. Yeah, you learned dock appeal, which helped you later with curb appeal. That's hilarious. So then it's not that surprising then to think that you had such a successful career as a realtor, because unlike a bunch of the real estate coaches out there who coach realtors, you actually bought and sold a whole heck of a lot of homes before you got into coaching.
Yep.
You have 1 year that you've shared with me before where you bought and sold an insane amount of properties. Tell us about that year and don't be shy about the number. What was that banner year like for you?
I wanted to hit 60 and I hit 58. So that was, I hit 58. I wanted to hit 60 and I hit my goal. So I remember being, upset that I didn't hit my goal. However, I was being coached during that time. That was my first experience way back then with coaching. Was I hired a coach, and most of my clients know the funny story about, I don't listen to my mom. Like I listened to you about the description, right? It's like, and this is like the one time in my life I really listened to my mother, and I'm very grateful for when she said, when I was single and I had a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, both daughters, and I'm single in Houston with no family. She says, Tanya, if you're not going to come home, right, to California, if you're not coming home, then you need to get a coach. And so I did. And my first year without my coach, I probably made $30,000. My second year, I remember making 60 because I hired her halfway through the year. And then the next year I made 100, and then I made 200. And, you know, it was just every year leaning into, her name was Kelly, leaning into Kelly. And I don't know, I probably need to go to church after I say this. But I was so proud, go to confession, that I made more money than my ex and I ever did together. And I remember buying a brand new Honda Passport and left it in the driveway. So when he picked up the kids to take them to their Wednesday dinner, my car was in the driveway. So I'm thinking if some of my ego was in there, but I would just remember how good it felt.
Well, look, I love that you're being honest. And at the time, that was a more ego driven and is like a little bit like, I'll show you. But you're wise now and probably have a couple more gray hairs. We're able to go,
A few.
I did it, but maybe that's not what I do now.
No.
How many years ago was that? When was that you had that amazing year and bought that car?
Well, my kids were 12, 13, and they're now 26 and 28. So 15 years ago.
And the only reason why I'm asking is just because the numbers you said, like, you know, a 200,000 plus or whatever is an incredible year now, but inflation has changed the game a little bit and the prices of houses have changed the game a little bit. So that's a heck of a number to have achieved when prices were at the rates they were 15 years ago.
Yeah, that is one of my superpowers, but it also can be one of my kryptonite too, is my drive.
And give us, all right, you opened it up. When is at a time when your drive has gotten you in trouble?
It's when I don't stop. When I'm up till 2 a.m. working on something, or I skip out on exercising because I got to do one more LinkedIn post, or, you know, I need to respond to, like, right before we got on, I had an SOS call. So I have that to do when you and I stop going live. And so the drive turns into kryptonite when I'm not administering self-care.
And what's self-care look for you? What's self-care? I'm sure this is something you talk to your clients about, and self-care is a kind of a buzzy word, but what does Tanya's self-care look like and sound like?
Is when I'm food prepping. It's when I'm exercising. It's when I take Charlie, my dog, and we go down to Carlsbad Beach or to Oceanside Strand and go for a long walk. That's what gets, and it's amazing all the great ideas I come up with when I do that, you know? But if I stay driven in my office, right, because it's a superpower till it's not.
Yeah, until you go past it. It's funny because when do you need to put a little bit more fuel on the fire? It's good to have that gear and to be able to go there, but there is a point of like diminishing returns. And the best thing you could do for yourself, for your clients, for your business is to get a better night's sleep, is to go for a walk, is to leave the office for 2 hours midday. All right, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you've got those things and you know what they are. Let's go from there to coaching, because I think, look, and we're barely touching it. Like, we're scraping because we only have half hour. So it's like living on a boat for 8 years, buying and selling boats,
then sail, then flying. Yeah,
flying. We didn't even touch on flying. I totally skipped on flying. Okay, we went to real estate, but let's go reverse, talk about flying for a few minutes, and then we're going to talk about coaching, because for those who don't know, Tanya's got, I think, the highest amount of coaching people she's coached, an amount of hours of anyone that I know personally. Like, I once I heard your number, I was like, I don't know if I personally know anyone who's coached more people or had more hours.
I have just over 5,000 hours, because I track it because I want to become a master coach and I have to track my hours. So you have to have 5,000 hours to be a master coach. And so I finally made it. I'm celebrating.
Yay.
It's huge for me. Yeah.
It's massive. All right. Well, we'll go in now. I've got questions about that. But okay. So we totally skipped flying. So on the ocean, at sea, and then in air. So tell us about flying, because you didn't just fly. Tell us about your flying business.
Well, so again, this was just kind of a serendipitous thing. So my ex he isn't any longer a pilot, and his family lived in Maine. And so when we jumped off the sailboat, we're in Maine. He needs to go to a local airport to get some flying hours in to stay current. And I decided and I would fly with him a lot, right? But this time I just wasn't feeling up to it. So I just stayed, inside the office, in the lounge. I'm hanging out, and I hear the manager quitting. and just literally no notice, just quit. And the owner of the FBO is like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And so as soon as my ex landed, I'm like, they need people to work here. Let's work here. And we did. I mean, it was just, that's it. Now we run it. Now we're running an airport. Now, of course, this takes a couple years, but I get my pilot's license. I get my commercial license. I'm running the airport, the flight school. He's running the maintenance department. I'm teaching the ground school, teaching people, Bernoulli's aerodynamic principles, and I'm just loving it. And so and again, it evolved. Getting my pilot's license was a challenge. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, because they didn't like 26, a cute little 26-year-old in the good old boys club of Maine running an airport and flying. Oh. And every male did everything they could to get me to quit. And I just kept firing them and finding a new flight instructor, and firing them and getting a new flight instructor. I mean, I'd go flying and they'd put their hand on my lap. I'm like, dude, I don't need to learn how to fly with your hand on my lap. We'd land and I'd fire them. But I finally found one that, was very respectful, very good, and went through and, his name was Rob, by the way. And I got my license. But I was not going to give up.
No, this tenacity that I know you to have, this, like, yeah, when you decide something, you make it happen. So I suspect that's something you've carried forward. Is there anything else from those years running that flight school, getting your license, that helped you later, or that you still use now as a coach? That either helped you as a realtor or helped you as a coach?
Yes, and I see some clients on here now, so they're going to all roll their eyes right now, is having a checklist. And I want everybody to put a comment in there about having a checklist, because you got to have a flight plan. You got to have a checklist. And everybody I coach, I do not let it go. I want to see their checklist. When you have a buyer, from the day you meet a buyer till their 1-year anniversary, I want to see your checklist. Where's the transactional piece, but where's the customer service? Where are you going to do certain action steps to get a referral? When do you ask for the referral? So checklists and a flight plan, they're all rolling their eyes. I just know it.
Well, it's fun because I know the way it works in an airplane. It's the thing that saves you from life or death.
Right.
But in the business, and especially something that's so referral driven and such big ticket items for realtors and brokers and people in that space, the checklist is what will ensure that something important doesn't fall through the cracks, because your phone is ringing all the time. You feel like you're on all the time. Things change quickly. So you have
multiple transactions. I have one client who was in my group coaching, come on to group coaching. I'm like, okay, what do you want to talk about? She says, I'm overwhelmed. I've got 3 listings and I'm overwhelmed. And I'm like, well, what's the number one thing you got to do right now? And there was silence. I'm like, well, where's your checklist? You just can't keep it all up here. You can, but you make mistakes, or you don't do the customer service piece. Right. It's just, if you have a checklist for each home that or each client you're servicing, it makes your life so easy.
It makes it so easy. There's 2 books I want to reference that back up everything you're saying right now. One is it's fairly old and well-known in the kind of the productivity space. It's Get Things Done. And the number one thing I took from that is, our brains are really good for noticing patterns, for creativity, for connection, but they're not meant to be a database of all the different things that we have to remember. And that's why when we feel overwhelmed or stressed, sometimes the first thing we'll do is to go make a list. Well, what if you didn't wait until you're overwhelmed to use a list and use a checklist? Right. Then you can be 2 times, 10 times, 20 times better. And the other one is a short book, which is an easy read, called Checklist Manifesto, which talks about hospitals and high-speed trains and aviation and all these industries where a checklist is the difference between whether the trains run on time, whether planes crash, whether people get sick, whether instruments get accidentally left in someone during an open surgery. That's a good thing to have. Lists and checklists are really powerful.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. So on the boats, selling boats, learning how to dock appeal. We've coined a new term, dock appeal on the boat.
Dock appeal. Yes, we have coined a new term.
Aviation, serendipity, just being there when someone walked out of the job, saying you want to do it, and being tenacious with this idea of getting your license, It didn't matter how many people tried to make you feel uncomfortable or make you quit. You kept doing it and you got your damn license, which is a super difficult thing. Became a realtor. And then we talked about your success as a realtor. And then you became a coach. Talk to us about that transition as going from realtor into moving into coaching, and like what drove that? What sparked that?
Well, I was in Houston, and okay, 'cause I had mentioned my daughters were young teenagers, and so now fast forward, 7 years, and now they're going off to college. So my oldest went to University of San Diego, and my mom lived in San Diego. She now lives in San Francisco, and so she again, California is more home for any of us. And then I had two more years in Houston with my youngest, and then she went to Pepperdine, so she's moving to Malibu, and I'm sitting in Houston going, what the fuck am I doing here, right? And yes, I'm motivated by money and by having a successful business, and however, my values around family, love, connection is way stronger than money, and it's still money's still very strong. So my coach, I remember it like yesterday. It was right around the end of September. Any of my clients that are listening, we know we goal set in October for the next year. So my coach in October is saying, "What do you want for whatever year it was, 2012 or whatever? What do you want for next year?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It's like, I'm here, but I'm not happy. And so she's the one that said, well, why don't we recruit you in? And you've been coached by this company by 7 years, real estate. And so I did have to go through the hiring process. I had to fly from Houston to Carlsbad, California, and be interviewed and go through the interview process. And then they hired me and gave me 2 weeks to move. So I had to deal with my database and my business. Yes. And off I went to California. And I actually was flying back and forth for quite a few months because I still had a lot of business. And then I, sold my business, meaning I gave it to another realtor that I got referral fees for 3 years from my database. And that was awesome. And so I'm coaching, and I realized just how much I loved coaching and helping clients do what I did and doing what Kelly did for me. I wanted to do for my clients, and that has not stopped.
Ah, I love this. They saw the potential in you. They made you the invitation. You went through all the hoops and earned it, but then you had to make a decision because 2 weeks, that's 14 days for you to, upend your life, change addresses and do stuff. And then
So my kids tease me. I'm going to interrupt you. My kids tease me that I followed them to college, and I did.
that's a good thing to be teased for. That's a
Yeah,
damn good thing
yeah.
to be teased for. And if I remember correctly, maybe I don't think I'm making this up. When you worked at one of the big companies that do real estate coaching, a lot of the coaches there weren't trained as coaches, didn't have certifications, didn't have their chops
Mm-mm.
in that field. And that's
Mm-mm.
something that you decided to pursue, correct?
Correct. I actually asked them if they would pay for it. Like, if I promise to stay with you for so many years, will you pay for it, or will you pay for half of the certification? Because each certification cost one was 15,000, the other one was almost 30,000. And so to pay for, and they said no. So I did it myself, and I did it through COVID. And so I had plenty of time, saved my money, and again, I still tracked my hours. And a lot of my clients back then volunteered because I had to tape my coach calls to send it in. And so they allowed me to tape our coach calls. And so they were very supportive. They knew what I was doing. And I earned my certifications. Yes.
I'd love that. That says so much about you that you asked, you advocated for yourself, you tried to make
Yep.
it as a win-win for them. And then when they didn't, you still voted for yourself. You still like, no,
Yep.
I'm gonna go for me. I'm gonna stand up for
Yep.
me. I'm gonna put money where my mouth is and bet on myself in a big way. Like $45,000 is not a small amount of money.
No.
Oh,
Nope. And I love having my certifications, and I keep, like I said, I want it now. I'm a PCC. I want to be an MCC, and so now that I just reached the 5,000 hour mark, I can apply for that.
I'm excited for you. I know that this has been successful because the amount of exclamation marks and wow and amazing, especially Rachel. I think we've blown the back of Rachel's head off a couple of times here with the things that you've shared and the
Yeah.
things that you've put out in the open. So we got a sense of your journey, got a sense of where you got your tenacity from, got a sense of that you have no problem sticking up for yourself, pushing against the system. And in the case, it was, sexism and things like that, and a
Yep.
company that wouldn't pay for you. What's important for you now? Because we've painted this picture, we've skimmed quickly. It's like we've done 4 decades of Tanya's life in 25 minutes. What's the future hold?
Continue to coach. I
Uh-huh.
want to expand my coaching practice. So that is a huge goal, as you know, Rob, to keep expanding and growing. And I just introduced a new program, Broker Brilliance. And my first workshop, in fact, Rachel will be there. Broker Brilliance is tomorrow, the workshop. And then I want to turn that into a coaching program. So that's on the very close radar. And so continue growing my practice, continue helping. And it's not just real estate agents. In fact, I did a complimentary coach call today, and he's going to let me know tomorrow by noon if he picks me as his coach. He has a large manufacturing company in Dallas. So that's this continue impacting people's lives and helping them grow their businesses. And then the second part of that is I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying being a grandma. It took me a long time to say those words or that word. And I don't know how, I mean, I know how it happened. I just don't know how it happened so fast.
That's
Yeah,
a
so
great way.
that's a big part of my future too.
Yeah. I think I love that because the growing the business, impacting more people. But I also know that every few weeks or once a month, you're traveling to go be with grandkids and to go be around these little people that
Yep.
mean so much to you.
Yep, they do. I mean, Stella, she has so many superpowers. And I
Mm.
am determined not to let this little, human lose them when she goes through puberty or a teenager, when so many men and women or young girls and young boys, lose that because of puberty and being teased. So it is on my radar, like front and center, that this and I have another grandchild. I don't know if it's a boy or girl because my daughter won't share the
Uh-huh.
info. But I want them to always have their superpowers front and center. That is how I want to impact my grandchildren.
I love that. Well, look, when they're lucky enough to hear the tales of your life and the things that you've overcome and the systems that you've pushed against, they're going to be completely inspired. Look, you skimmed over it and the Broker Brilliance workshop is coming up quick, but on the off chance there's someone listening to this who isn't registered, what can someone expect from Broker Brilliance? What's going to happen at Broker Brilliance? Why would they want to sign up?
Well, it's going to be a 2-hour workshop. It's complimentary, and we're going to hit mindset, of course, and then we're hitting hiring, recruiting, because that's really important that we hire, their ideal realtor. So if it's a team leader or a broker, they're constantly recruiting. So we're hitting hiring and recruiting. And then the middle piece is the retention, because everybody, every broker, every team leader knows how, I can't find the word. Sorry, it's the cold and the Dayquil. But agents are being recruited. If they're a good agent, when they have a close, I promise you 2 or 3 brokers are reaching out to them saying, come, let me take you to lunch. I want to recruit you. So they are heavily being recruited. So I want to work on the retention piece and, how to retain your agents so that they don't go following, the grass is greener on the other side. And the recruiter is telling them the grass is greener on the other side. And then the third piece is community. And again, if you create a sense of community like you have with your community, Rob, and you do need to stop and brag about yourself a little bit while we're on this call.
No.
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 Okay, he's a phenomenal coach. And so creating a sense of community.
That's for another time.
Okay,
Look,
that's for another time. But then you got to come on with me again.
welcome on again. I really wanted
Yeah,
to stay true to the
it is.
intention of this one.
Okay.
And then for anyone who heard Tanya talk about this, so mindset, recruiting the right people, retaining the right people, because you know that in this market, your best agents, the moment they have a close, they're getting a message, they're getting invites for lunch, they're getting texts, they're getting a congratulatory message that comes with a little
Right.
hook trying to sneak them away.
Right.
So I've heard you say this before, to keep your best agents even when they're getting those invites, or have your best agents not even say yes to the lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I know we're going to go over for a second, but I'm going to sneeze. I remember this happened to me. I was with Better Homes and Gardens, Gary Green in Houston, and he is one of the most phenomenal brokers I've ever had, other than the ones that I coach. And And somewhere along the line, uh, and I don't know, well, I'll say the name. Remax had some hook that really got me. And I don't know how that happened because I loved my brokerage. But I went and had lunch. They recruited me, promised me and I think they promised me like 2 leads a month or something, right? So I went to Remax after 3 months. They did not give me anything that they promised. And I went back with my tail between my legs saying, I want to come back. And of course, I was welcome back. And the rest is history. I stayed there the whole time. But it happens. And it happened to me. And I'm not easily recruitable.
Wow. I'm glad you took the time to go over that. And then for anyone who's hearing this who, it's after the Broker Brilliance workshop tomorrow, I just want to say that go to Tanya's website, check her out because she's really generous and she runs these workshops every few months. So if you've missed this one, she's running them regularly and she's always leading with generosity and giving a whole heck of a lot. Thank you for letting me drive and push and be a bit of a bully purely so that we can talk about you and love you and highlight you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. You know me well enough now, and I'll turn that off before you yell at me. So, but that's on there for the video. And you don't yell at me. You do push me, just like I push clients out of their comfort zone. You do have a skills to do that, and I'm not easily coachable. So I am very open to being coached. However, we all have those voices in our heads and our comfort zones. And so I appreciate you very much, Rob. So thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. And thank you for everyone who's been so engaged in the chat and putting all the comments and cheering on and just confirming that what I thought, which is people would want to hear this and hear your story.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody, for commenting in the chats. I appreciate it. It's always fun to have company, at least for me. So thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.